The Art of Carving, The Art of Carving by Thomas Hilliard. Copyrighted 1899. And we see here at archive.org that the Library of Congress is unaware of any copyright restrictions on this item. The Gorham Company make all of their carving implements herein illustrated, as also the different sizes of table cutlery for individual use with handles to match any of their regular spoon and fork patterns. The Art of Carving. Carving is an art. Therefore, proficiency in carving is largely the result of practice and study. That there should be so few persons who are able to carve well seems strange, and the person who does carve easily, neatly, and gracefully has acquired an ability of which he may well be proud. The following pages are intended, so far as may be, to give such instruction or suggestions in regard to the art of carving as may be written, but as stated above, these instructions can only be used to advantage in conjunction with careful practice. Bear in mind that no great personal strength is required in carving. More depends on address than force. Some knowledge of the bones, joints, tendons, etc. will help the beginner, and this can best be acquired by a study of the materials before they are cooked. Housewives have opportunity for this study, but most men must learn by experience after the meat is put before them. It is expected that the butcher will facilitate the carver's work by cutting the meat properly and dividing the bones and cutting particularly tough tendons. It is the duty of the cook to see that the meat is thus delivered in proper shape. The cook should also take care that all unnecessary skewers, strings, etc. are removed before sending the meat to the table. The platter should always be large enough to conveniently hold the meat or fowl, not only before carving, but after the various slices or parts are separated. The dish should be placed near enough for the carver to reach it without rising, and if necessary, his chair should be elevated so as to give him proper command of his subject. Grasp the handle of the fork with the palm down and forefinger extended. Insert the fork deep enough in the meat to hold it firmly. Work slowly and carefully. Do not create a shower bath of crumbs and gravy. Cut straight, uniform slices. This is more easily said than done. When very thin slices are asked for, less than 1/8 of an inch in thickness is understood. Thin means from 1/8 to 3/16. Medium means at least 1/4 of an inch thick. In serving, give each person a share of such parts as are considered choicest. Show no partiality. Of course, ask each one his preference. Keep each portion served compact, not mussy, and after all are served, the remainder of the platter should appear as neat and inviting as possible. Art of Carving. Meats. Sirloin of beef. This is served differently at various tables, some preferring to have the fillet or undercut on top. The reverse way, as shown in the diagram, is the more common. There are two ways of cutting this joint. The better way is by carving long, thin slices from F to E. The other is by cutting across from C to D. This last way is wasteful. The most tender part is in the fillet or undercut. Here will be found some delicate fat, part of which should be given with each piece, but only to those who care for fat. In carving from F to E, insert the knife just above the bone at the bottom. Run it sharply between the bone and meat, and also divide the meat from the bone at the side of the joint. The slices will then come away more easily. Ribs of beef. This may be carved similarly to the sirloin, from B to A. Ribs of beef, B to A. That is, B to A. That is, and cutting long slices, so as to give fat and lean together. In case the backbones are not removed before cooking, cut close to the backbone down to the ribs. Round of beef. This requires no illustration, as it is very easy to carve. Cut a thick slice from the top so as to leave a smooth surface. Then cut thin and very even slices across the top. And with each slice, from the lean, a delicate morsel of the fat should be served. Portions of the browned outside slice may be given to those who care for it. A steady hand and an extra sharp knife are required for this joint. Beefsteak. Sirloin steaks are generally served with the bone. Occasionally the bone is removed and the tenderloin and upper part pressed close together. When served thus, it is placed on the dish with the tenderloin next to the carver. He cuts in long narrow strips from the fat edge through the tenderloin and gives each person a share of both tenderloin, upper part, and fat. Porterhouse steak has no bone and is cut and served the same way. When sirloin is served with the bone, cut the tenderloin away from the bone. Then remove the meat from the upper side of the bone. Cut both pieces in narrow strips and give some of both to each person. Rump and round steak should be cut across the grain. The several parts of a large rump steak vary much in quality, and discretion in serving should be exercised. Loin of mutton. The most important part of carving this joint must be done by the butcher. That is, the joint should be thoroughly well jointed by him before it is cooked. This accomplished and the meat brought on in proper shape, insert a knife at A between the bones and bring it down sharply to B. Serve one chop or rib to each person, with some of the kidney and fat if desired. Leg of mutton. The best part of this joint is found at A. Insert the knife there and cut thin, deep slices each way as far in as B. The fat will be found near the line C to D. The knuckle end is always dry and well done, and the larger end more juicy. This helps to meet the desires of each person. Haunch of mutton. First make a deep cut down to the bone from A to B. Then carve in slices of medium thickness along the line from D to C. The leg is sometimes served with the haunch and makes a difficult joint to divide. It can be done after much practice, but the division can best be accomplished in the seclusion of the kitchen. Shoulder of mutton. As shown in the illustration, this joint should be placed on the platter with the thick part uppermost. Cut in to the bone from A to B and carve as many thin slices as possible from each side of the cut. Then carve from C to D and C to D each side of the blade bone. The line E to F shows the location of the good fat. Saddle of mutton. There is a diversity of opinion as to how this choice joint should be sent to the table. Hence no illustration is given. The tail end should rest on the left of the platter. Insert the fork firmly near the center. Cut the whole length of it down close to the backbone, cutting long thin slices. Slide the knife under and divide the slices from the bone. Repeat on the other side of the back. Choice pieces of tenderloin and fat may be found under the ribs. Forequarter of lamb. The experienced carver here meets a foe worthy of his steel. This is a difficult joint for a beginner and affords a fine field for judgment and dexterity. First, divide the shoulder from the breast by passing the knife lightly around the dotted lines A, B, C, D, and E to cut the skin. Then raise the shoulder with the fork and cut in the same place again. Cut so as to have a fair portion of the meat on the ribs, and lay it on a separate dish. The other part should be sprinkled with pepper and salt, or say a dressing of butter, lemon juice, cayenne pepper, and salt. Then separate the ribs from the brisket by cutting through the meat on the line F to E. Carve the ribs from I to K. Carve the ribs from I to K and the brisket G to H. Serve each person a portion of the part he prefers. Note, loin of lamb, leg of lamb, shoulder of lamb, saddle of lamb are carved in the same manner as the corresponding joints of mutton. These being small joints and expensive when first in season, should be helped sparingly. The ribs and brisket constitute breast of veal. Separate these two parts by passing the knife from A to B. Cut the ribs apart, E to F, and divide the brisket in the direction of C to D. Serve a portion of the brisket, rib, and a slice of the sweetbread, if any, to each person. Fillet of beef. This resembles a round of beef and is carved similarly to it in thin and very smooth slices. Off the top, help some of the stuffing with each slice, and give some of the brown outside slice to those who relish it. Knuckle of veal. Carve in the direction of the dotted line A to B. The best slices will be from the thickest part of the knuckle, near and outside the line. Loin of veal. This resembles a loin of mutton in appearance and, like it, is easily carved if the butcher has properly jointed it. Cut between the bones and give each person a piece of the kidney and kidney fat, which will be found beneath the joint. Note, carving a forequarter of veal is practically the same as forequarter of lamb or mutton, and the shoulder of veal about the same as shoulder of mutton. Roast of pig. This old-fashioned dish is not seen very often, but is perhaps usual enough to make carving directions of possible service. It is generally sent to table as shown in the cut. First, separate the shoulder from the body by cutting around the circular lines A, B, C. Then separate a leg in the same way. Cut between D and E to divide the ribs. Slices may be cut from the shoulders and hams. The other half is treated in a similar fashion. All parts of a young pig are considered good. Still, guests should be asked to state their preference. Serve each portion with sufficient stuffing and gravy. Very young pigs are sometimes served whole. In this case, cut off the head first. Your knife must seek the neck joint. Then cut off the shoulders and legs as directed above. Split the backbone the whole length. Then cut ribs and other parts as directed for ordinary roast pig. Ham. Use a very sharp and thin knife. Commence about the middle of the ham and cut wide, delicate slices. Through the thick fat down to the bone. Hold the knife in a slanting direction from the thick part towards the knuckle. Leg of pork. Carve across this joint and commence about halfway between the knuckle and the larger end, cutting. Note, loin of pork is essentially the same as loin of mutton, veal, or venison. The other dishes of pork do not require any special directions as to their carving or serving. Alright, carve across this joint, leg of pork. Carve across this joint and commence about halfway between the knuckle and larger end. Joint and commence about halfway between the knuckle and the larger end, cutting thin, deep slices. Sage and onion are usually sent to the table with this dish. Sometimes the leg is stuffed. Some of the dressing or stuffing should be given to those who desire it. Calf's head. The dish is not often seen on American tables, and when first met with looks rather formidable. It is, however, very easily carved. Cut medium thick slices from B to A, letting the knife sink to the bone. Cut down at the back of the throat, C to D, to get the sweetbread. Some nice lean meat will be found when the jawbone is removed. The tongue and brains are served separately, and each guest may be asked to have some. Poultry and game, fowl. The carving knife for poultry is smaller and lighter than the meat carver. The handle is longer and the knife more pointed. In carving a fowl, fix the fork firmly across the breast bone and take off the wing by dividing the joint near A. Lift up the pinion with the fork and draw the wing toward the leg, which will separate the fleshy part more naturally than by the knife. Cut the bone between the leg and body, between C and B. Give the blade a sudden turn, and the joint will break if the fowl is not too old. If the joint does not break, force the leg away from the body with the knife. This will show the position of the joint, which can then be cut through. Capons and large fowls may be sliced thinly across the breast, but if the fowl is small, draw the knife along the edge of the breastbone on either side and take the meat away from the bone. Separate the collarbone from the breast by inserting the knife at the broad end of the bone and turning from the body until the smaller piece of the bone breaks off. Then divide the breast from the back by cutting through the ribs, close to the breast. Turn up the back. Note, it is not generally necessary to cut up a fowl so completely as described in the foregoing. In most cases, a division of the wings and legs and slicing of the breast is all that is required. Alright, then divide the breast from the back by cutting through the ribs close to the breast. Turn up the back. Press the point of the knife about halfway between the neck and rump. And on raising the lower end, it will separate easily. Free the side bones by cutting close to the backbone from end to end on each side. The breast and wings are the most delicate parts, but the leg is more juicy in a young bird. Turkey. Insert the fork firmly across the middle of the breastbone. Sever the wings and thighs close to the body. It requires some practice to find the joints, but if the bird is tender, they will come partly asunder if the limbs are bent away from the body. Carve the breast in thin slices, taking some of the crisp outside with each slice. Turn the bird partly over and remove the oyster and small dark portions on the side bones. Give a portion of the stuffing and light or dark meat as preferred. If it is necessary to divide the bird further, you may proceed as in the directions for carving fowl. Roast goose. Insert the fork firmly across the ridge of the breastbone. Carve even slices, not too thick or too thin, from the breast in the direction of the line B to C. Begin near the wing and cut the whole length of the breast, cutting down to the bone each time. Insert the knife under the meat at the end of the breast and remove the slices from the bone. To get at the stuffing, cut around the line A, and remove it with a spoon. The thigh being considered one of the best parts, it may be removed by separating the thigh joint, which is tougher and lies nearer the backbone than in other fowls. Roast duck. If the bird is a young duckling, it may be carved like a fowl. V. By first taking off the legs and wings, but in cases where the duckling is very small, the leg and wing together will not form too large a portion for one person. After the legs and wings are disposed of, the remainder may be carved same as a fowl. When the duck is large, it is better to carve in the same way as a goose. Cut slices from the breast, commencing close to the wing. If the legs and wings are wanted, it may be remarked that the legs of a duck are placed far more backward than those of a fowl. This is the only difference worth mentioning. The stuffing is not often desired. If it is, it may be found by cutting across the breast. Wild duck. As game is usually served as a dainty, only those parts are served which are considered the primest and best flavored. Of duck and other wild fowl, only the breast is served to epicures, and slices are cut from this in the direction of A to B. If necessary, the leg and wing can be taken off by passing the knife from C to D. Pigeon. Carry the knife sharply from D to E, entirely through the bird, cutting it into 2 equal parts. The bones are thin and can easily be divided with a sharp knife. If it is desired to make 3 portions of the bird, a wing may be cut off with the leg on either side, thus serving 2 guests. And there will still be sufficient meat left on the breast to serve for a third portion. If the bird is quite large and 4 portions are wanted, insert the knife at A and cut to B and C, and then divide each part in 2 pieces. Okay, we will continue this in the next video. Thank you.